So main character, stage of life. Stage of life is an important term because we want to start our story off in some way where we get to see that the character's on the verge of something or something just happened to them. They were just fired. They're on the verge of turning 16. They are, eager to get their, own their first car. There's some kind of stage of life, and the formal way of looking at that is like a senior in college, or they are about to turn 30, or, whatever level of stage of life that they're in. So that's important. We want to be presenting that. And within that, we want to see a desire and a longing and some kind of a personal goal that has nothing to do with the plot. It's something that they want. It could be a person, it could be a job, it could be their family coming back together. They're about to go do something, and it means something to them. We want to understand the level of importance there. It doesn't necessarily have to yet be stakes driven, but it still needs to be important. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. Then, of course, we want to be presenting, I'll rephrase what I just said about that main character stuff. There's an emotional situation that the character is in. That's an easy way of looking at, it's almost like you're presenting the A story, but from a character perspective. We're not yet presenting that character experiencing the plot. We want to put them in a situation that is only and purely character related. We're not presenting plot yet. Then we want to set up the plot. A lot of you call it the inciting incident. I look at the term setup event and inciting incident differently for the purposes of this lecture. Whatever term you want to throw on it, it's fine. But what you're setting up is an opportunity, and I think this is really important. If there's anybody that remembers anything from this webinar, hopefully it's this. But what the setup event is doing, what the inciting incident is doing, present an opportunity for the writer to change the character. So what this is, it's not just an opportunity for the character to change eventually, or to pursue something, or to have a new experience. Think of it from a development standpoint, that it's an opportunity for you as the writer to put this character through the ringer with this situation that is being presented to them, whether and that's another part, they're either willingly going after the goal or they're reluctantly going after the goal. Whatever the energy is behind that, the character is going to change because of the situation that they're in. And so you as a writer can see that specifically. And the reason they're going to change, and this is part of the development process, not necessarily exactly what needs to happen in the first act, even though we're going to see it at least in a subtle way, that the flaw is technically what's going to be tested. So in other words, we're presenting the character first, we get a sense of this personality, and then they're presented a situation that they're going to experience, and now we get to see the flaw in the situation connect. And we're going to, as an audience, and you as the writer in your development process, have an understanding that this is going to be difficult merely because of who the character is and what the situation is that character is going to experience. That's a really basic, foundational level of story. We need to have an understanding of that. So when plot is presented, if we, the writer, have not yet presented enough character presentation, meaning them in their own stage of life, seeing their personality, their own longing and desire and goals, and just from outside of a plot perspective, before that setup event actually happens, then we, the audience, are not going to fully be able to appreciate what this coming situation might be. I could go off on a tangent on that. We'll keep it there for now. But so they're either going to, if a character is reluctant to go after and pursue something that this setup event presents, then they'll probably deny it at first. They'll be like, no, I'm not going to do it. They turn it down, probably because some form of a fear or whatever. Then eventually they come back and are convinced to go after and pursue this goal that has been presented to them, to go, experience this situation that has been presented because of a level of stakes. So we want to make sure we have an understanding of what's at stake if they don't pursue the goal, from a plot perspective, but also a character perspective. And that's what I said. So what's at stake personally and plot-wise? So there's a threat that's proposed. And the threat is to the character in a personal way, but also in a plot way. Okay, so if you look at like Will Smith in Independence Day, the obvious threat is aliens are invading. They're going to kill a bunch of people. World's going to be taken over. But Will Smith's character has a personal reason for wanting to get involved in this. And so now we're connecting those two. So we have personal stakes and plot stakes presented. From there, we're then also going to be presenting a secondary character and what that core relationship is, the most important relationship in the movie. There are probably going to be multiple relationships throughout, especially if you're writing for TV. But if you have a main character and then a secondary character, then there are many terms you could use for that. Michael Haig, who is a longtime consultant, calls it the reflection character. But it could be a mentor, it could be the best friend, whatever it might be. It's Samwise Gamgee to Frodo, it's Doc Brown to Marty McFly. It's that secondary character, and we need to understand the personality of that character. We need to get a full understanding of where they are in their stage of life. It's like it's the second main character in the story. So you're doing a lot of the same things that you're doing or that you did with the main character, but you're going to do it in a shorter amount of time. Now that goes for movies and TV. It's a little more obvious in TV because in TV you can kind of bifurcate the time, meaning you can spend time on a story character. Here's this person, and we're going to get to know this person and this person's world and what they want and all that. And then we'll jump to another scene and we introduce the B story character. And it's almost equal amount of time sometimes that we spend, on screen. In movies, you're going to have a little less time with that secondary character that we're spending from a percentage standpoint, because more often than not all the time, more often than not, we've got a main character driven story. You see main character driven stories more often than you see ensembles. I don't want to get into a discussion on ensembles, but an ensemble is a whole different kind of monster. It's like writing a giant TV episode, because you have A story, B story, C story, D story, E story, whatever, because you have multiple characters, like in The Big Chill or St. Elmo's Fire or Family Stone, Love Actually. I mean, I'm sure there are some that have come up recently. Each of those characters are their own main character in their storyline. So, like I said, you're basically writing a giant episode of TV, because in TV you're going to be able to bounce between A story, B story, sometimes even a C story. Especially if you're in a half-hour comedy, you're going to probably break it up because you're going to have a lot of characters. Anyway, to come back to looking at this first act here. So we want to be presenting who this secondary character is. And what I meant by the core relationship is we want to get a good sense of how that secondary character is going to affect the main character, just from a pure personality standpoint. Who is the secondary character compared to the main character? What are their beliefs compared to the main characters? We as an audience can start assuming, okay, just because of these types of people, this person's going to learn this from this person, and then this person's going to learn this from that person. And you don't have to spell it out, but just because of who they are, we get a sense of what that dynamic is going to be like, right? And then how that relationship could evolve. I can't stress enough how important it is to focus your development processes, your brainstorming, around relationships in your stories. They define your story. It's not the plot. It really isn't. The plot is what's going to draw people in to watch it. I'd watch, whatever. Lord of the Rings is probably a terrible example, but the new Rings of Power series on Amazon Prime.